the funny thing about this book is if you're looking for it to be a story about her children or anything like that, this is not that. It does include because she was the baby of all her siblings. And so they call her Bad A, Teeny B, because she was like more outspoken and her parents were older when they had her. So she was the baby and she kind of got away, I guess, with a lot of things. But the story is so interesting. I love how she talks about her mom and her mom's mom and the women that came before her. And it ties so perfectly into the name of the book, the title of the book, Matriarch, because of course we have Miss Tina, but in order to really understand Miss Tina, you got to talk about her mom. So her mom was living in New Orleans, in Louisiana. I can't remember what part at the moment, but she was in Louisiana. And she met a guy. She had her first child with that guy. They moved to Galveston, to Texas. Things didn't work out with the guy. She moved back home to Louisiana. Meets Tina's father. Okay, Tina's father and the mother and Tina's mother. Everything was going great. He was okay. So he was working at a place where they were getting salt. I believe it was salt, and the salt had to be mined, right? And so they would use explosives to get the salt. Long story short, an unfortunate event happens, and her father is stuck along with another man inside of one of the salt mines, and they closed. The practice at that time was to shut down the mine for the day, send everybody home. He worked there along with his brothers. Tina's father worked there along with his brothers. So the powers that be sent everybody home. Said it was done, was no point in looking for them because they were suspected to be dead. Well, her brothers went back, started up all the, his brothers went back, started up all the equipment and stuff. Long story short, dug him and the man that was in there out. They were both badly injured. Tina's father never could hear out of one ear and see out of one eye again. Union came, not the insurance people, the labor union came once they heard about what happened to Tina's father and his co-worker, to Tina's family to talk to them about what happened. And I guess trying to encourage them to join the labor union. Well, first of all, his brothers were locked up at the hospital for going and getting him and the co-worker out of there. So that's number one. The police came to the hospital and locked them up. It made their family a target in that city. So that's number one. And then after that, when the labor union came to talk to them about what happened, they became a target and people started coming to their house, threatening them. They were getting threats because they, were talking to the labor union people. And the long story short is they set their house on fire. This is a story that is so prevalent in African American history that it is unbelievable. There are so many stories. I've read Coretta Scott King's autobiography. She talks about her father building several houses in several different cities and them being bombed and caught on fire, and they having to move to another city and build another house. And then people will say that black people haven't tried enough in this country to build wealth for themselves. We try. They set it on fire, they blow it up, but we're not going to go down that street. The point is, this happened to Tina and her family, and they left and fled in the middle of the night with the clothes on their backs, pajamas, to Galveston, Texas, to her ex-husband's house, because that's the only place they had to go. And he had married another woman, and he let them come stay and helped her father get a new job that he worked pretty much for the rest of his life. And they were finally able to get a place and move on. And then, that's the story of that. And that's the story of how they got situated in Galveston. The thing that I love about once they got situated in Galveston is the history of Galveston. And I think the writing is done so well. because they give you a nice history about Galveston, about how, okay, I'm going to read this. It says, and I hope I don't get a flag, it says, the storm of 1900, a hurricane that remains the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history, destroyed Galveston and killed at least 8,000 people. Okay, but Galveston was one of the largest ports for slave trafficking of human beings across the Atlantic. Galveston had money, but we also had Galveston had money, but we also had all that pride, all that excellence centered in one place because Galveston had its own bank, post office, telephones. They had electric in the homes for that time was a big deal. Um, Black high school for black children, which eventually, as a result of integration, that was dismantled. Tina, being the baby of the family, felt the brunt of that, wanting to go to high school at this high school all her life, growing up and ending up having to go to the all white high school once the black high school was closed, and she being the rebel that she was, the bad A-teeny-B, formed like a student union with the kids who, the black kids at the white school, and they wore afros and they did their little like shows about black history and things like that, but they were not able to integrate fully in like the cheerleading system the way that she wanted to be like a cheerleader at the black school. None of that stuff was able to translate entirely into the white school. So some of the things she wanted to do at the black high school and always wanted to do, watching her brother play for the black high school team, football team, and she wasn't able to do those things, which is so very sad. But of course, we make the best of the situations that we're in. Another interesting thing about the fact that they grew up in this really affluent black town, Galveston, is that when she would go to Louisiana to visit her family, because they would leave in the middle of the night and just show up there, which reminds me so much of my own family, because we would leave here, Maryland, and go to New York and just show up. And then my aunt would start cooking and they would start getting towels for people to wash up and stuff like that. We don't do those kind of things as much anymore, but I remember the times when we used to do that. Or my family would come from Virginia. Nobody would know that they were coming, and they would come in and we would just start cooking. Well, not me, but like my parents and stuff, they start cooking and, getting things ready to entertain them. There's always some spades, always some crabs, So anyway, all of that to say, as she was describing them going to Louisiana to see her family, it made me think of my own family. And then, of course, the story will always be told, she said, of how they ended up not being in Louisiana anymore, which, of course, as I just described, was a very painful story, but they always let her father tell it. There's something else. Oh, it was so different and culture shock for her to go to Louisiana because they could not eat ice cream in the store. Like, they would have to wait until all the white customers were out of the store before the black customers could go in and get ice creams. Things that she did not understand. And so she got in trouble once and got her family members in trouble once when they went to Louisiana, because she couldn't understand why they were standing outside waiting for these people to come out the store and why she couldn't just go in and get her ice cream. She was from Galveston and they could do that. They had their own ice cream parlor, right? So she started to understand, and she relays that story in here as well. So she always, seems like her family always kept their connection to Louisiana, but of course they were rooted in Galveston, which in and of itself, it sounds so beautiful the way she describes it. Yes, they had some really hard times. There was a lot of racist acts that took place towards her family. And it's really unfortunate. Her brother, a certain situation happened to her brother that was so heart-wrenching to me. This book, you cry, you laugh, you celebrate. It's a whole vibe. And so you kiki, but it's definitely, a roller coaster, because the story of black people in this country is a roller coaster. It's not some linear story of how we just breeze right on through. It is layered with so much pain and then happiness, and fighting to have your happy in the midst of the pain. And this book is a true testament of that. But even with all of that being said, how her family was just targeted so much in Galveston as they grew up, because it was a lot of them. It was a lot of them. And I love the stories, the way she describes her sister, her sister who lived not too far down the road, her, I guess you could say uncle cousin, Johnny, of course, was her sister's son, and the Johnny that Beyonce talks about in her Renaissance album, him is so she talks about her sister. She describes her sister smoking a cigarette and making like the swirls and stuff with it, and that made me think so much of my mother, because my mother smoked so much when we was growing up. And I don't even know if I'm gonna leave that part in the video because she probably wouldn't want me to share that. But I remember her and my grandmother um, smoking up cigarettes and doing their little tricks with their smoke. But it's just so funny to think about that. It's just us being us, and when I say that, I mean black people being black. And so yeah, all of that is beautiful. And then she talks about her mother like doing the pennies and using the pennies to like buy, well, not buy, but like win prizes for the kids in the neighborhood to come and play on the different swing sets and stuff that she got from doing the pennies, and how she had to save up so many of these penny stamp things to be able to do that. And I was just like, wow, like we always made something out of nothing. No matter where we are on this earth, we always made something out of nothing. That is the story of people of color in this world, right? I have to say this, but sometimes when I think about being black in this country, I try to remind myself like you were brought here because you had something that was needed. You knew how to grow food, so we were brought here for the purpose of growing food. Of course, we brought certain things weaved into our hair that we grew for ourselves. But we were brought here because of what we knew internally. We weren't even brought with anything, because everything that was within us was what was needed for this country to be developed. The knowledge of how to grow food, labor to build things that we invented. Of course, we couldn't patent anything, but we invented the things. And yeah, it makes me so proud of us, because who we are is our value, right? Who we are with nothing in our hands. Who we are and what we know is our value. I hope that blesses somebody. Anyway, so we talked about a little bit about her upcoming. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, so we out here. We got Solange. We got Beyonce. Baby, Miss Tina was in a singing group way before Beyonce and Solange and it was even thought about. I mean, we love the girls. We adore the girls, okay? Let me tell you, don't touch my hair. And all my single ladies, okay? But Miss Tina was in a singing group, y'all. Hold on. When she was a teenager. This is far before they were ever thought about. And it makes me tingle to think about the fact that all of Tina's mother was a great seamstress. She sewed and mended and did all kind of sewing for the church and things so that the school at the church, the kids, Tina and her brothers and sisters could go to for free. They did all of the maintenance for the church in terms of like cleaning the church and maintaining like the clothes and sewing it. They did a lot. But the fact that her mother could sew like that, and her mother's mother could sew like that, and it passed it down to them, it was all a build-up. And so for any of us who think that our lifetimes, oh, what am I doing? What you're doing is planting seeds if we're doing it right. What we're doing is planting seeds and passing on things that lead up to the people who will become the Beyoncés of the world. Listen, Miss Tina and her mother and Johnny and them, they were sewing clothes for her to perform in this group, honey. And doing all of that way before, when Miss Tina was a teenager, she loved to perform and sing and can dance her butt off, honey. I'm trying to find a picture of her in this group because I was just undone when I read that. Because I'm like, oh, it makes so much sense that Beyonce would want to be in a group. It makes so much sense that Solange dancing all over the place and doing all these artistic endeavors. She loves art. Miss Tina loves art. Before the kids, she talks about one of her, I think it was her brother's girlfriend, took her to see an Alvin Ailey dance, and how that opened her eyes to like the world of art. And she also loves like just all kind of art. Miss Tina loves art. It's so exciting to me that what Miss Tina did, what Miss Tina's mom did with the sewing and things like that, led to what we see in the success of Solange, Beyonce, Kelly, and even Jules out here modeling and killing the game. All of that stemmed from the ancestors before them. that worked so hard and did this work. And it might have seemed like, well, what are they, what are they doing all this work for? They sew and things like that. But all of that passed down correctly led to Miss Tina being able to make clothes for the group that other people couldn't have made. Being able to make scraps, get scrap materials, and put together fabulous outfits for them because she knew how to sew. So this is a picture of Miss Tina, though, and her singing group. That says 1969. Okay? Go ahead, Miss Tina. And so, she said she writes about how she probably could have been a lot more successful with that kind of thing had it not been for her parents wanted her to get a safe job and do the safe thing, which makes sense. I mean, for that time, that makes perfect sense. Okay, let's fast forward to when she meets Matthew Knowles. So she met Matthew, and he really wasn't her cup of tea, but he was charming, and she fell for him. They got married, and it's from the beginning. It sounds like it was a very rocky situation, and so this is what I love about Miss Tina in this book. She saw that the situation was rocky. She still was a first-time mom. Her mother had passed before she had her children, so she didn't have her mother there with her. Her family was in Galveston. They were in Texas, and so she was really navigating motherhood for the first time, being nervous about leaving Beyonce and Solange, but at the same time knowing that she needed to establish something for herself should the situation arise that she had to be on her own with her children. And it did. It did multiple times. And she ended up back with her husband at the time, but multiple situations did arise where she was on her own with her kids. And so she started her salon with his help, and she attributes the help of establishing the salon and some of the ideas that he had with making it as successful as it was. And but it held the family down when he was exploring his different ventures and things. It held the family down. And she had a magazine, a hair magazine that came out of that. That is so dope to me. I wish I could see that magazine somewhere. I wish somebody had an old copy and I can just look at the hairstyles and stuff that she featured, because she featured artists from different places in the magazine, and it was a really good, like, quality magazine, something you would keep like a table book kind of thing. So proud of Miss Tina. And then she talks about, how, then she talks about, we get around to Beyonce and Solange getting into this dancing and singing and things like that, and how shocked she was, like completely shocked she was at least Beyonce's like behavior. It sounds like Solange was that girl. She look, I'm here. Whereas Beyonce was more quiet, and when she needs to show up to do her thing, she does it. But nobody was expecting it. Whereas Solange was giving them the dance moves, the feedback. You need to do this. You need to do that. At least that's how it read to me. Okay, and so it's so interesting to read about how she really supported them doing that and listened to the suggestions of. That's why the village is so important, because people will see things in your children that you don't see in them, and they will point it out to you, and then you have a choice. You can nurture it or you can kind of stamp it down. But she let them be. She let them pursue the things that they were interested in, put their finances and their resources behind their interests, and we see the fruit of that. So I love the book. I'm not going to belabor this video too long, but I just wanted to say, this book, my favorite part of it is her growing up in Galveston with her brothers and sisters. That's my favorite part, the beginning of the book. It's way before she had the children and everything. It's just like you get to fall in love with Miss Tina as a young girl, as a teenager. The thing, and it's, to me, it's like history. It's the history of the place she grew up in. It's the history of her family. It's the history of Black people in this country. So much of it is so relatable. I have so many highlights in here and so many notes in this book. But yeah, if you get a chance, please do pick this book up and check it out. I read this book over a month ago, and life has been life, and I've been busy. But and I've been traveling and doing my summer things with my child and with my family, which is a blessing. I thank God for that. But finally got around to reviewing Miss Tina's Matriarch. If you have not already, get your hands on it, read it, devour it, love it. It's one of those books to keep. I want to come next and do my review of Cicely Tyson's autobiography. I read that book 4 years ago. The book is so good, and so I think that's going to be next. So if you're watching this and you're subscribed, or if you're not, please do subscribe. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video. But I'm thinking the next one I'm going to put up is the Cicely Tyson book review, because it's equally as great. It's history and everything like that. And thank God for Miss Tina. Thank God for their family. Thank God for all of our families continuing to prosper despite the odds, and do well and be well, in spite of all of the various challenges that we've had to deal with throughout our history as a people in this country. And still we rise. All right. Talk to y'all later. Have a good one.